Check the audio. Start trying to loosen up, which is going to be a challenge today, given the cold. Oh. I wish it was feeling more like golf weather this late into May, but it just isn't. Check, check, check. Mic check.
Check, check, check. Mic check.
Okay, nice. So that sounds okay. Oh, sometimes this is the most important part of the practice session is the warm-up. Oh. See, that's why you keep working at it. Let's see who's in here. Kraken, back in the chat. Hey, Kraken, what's up? Oh, thanks for coming back for another stream. Just getting started here. Just really trying to begin the process of warming up. Kraken says, thanks for helping me yesterday. Absolutely, Kraken. I'm happy that you found it helpful. And, you know, that it was valuable enough to come back and check out the stream again. So, yeah, we've had a few comments already, you know, repeat commenters or, you know, folks from the live streams who have made their way over to the shorts videos. And giving us some good feedback there, too, which is really cool to see. So I'm just going to start getting loose while we let the chat start to fill up and see what good questions we can answer tonight. Oh, and in my own game, something I'm working on is trying to shorten up the driver swing like just a tiny bit. Starting to get a little bit too long, especially when I really go after it, and then the sequencing gets really tough, and I end up late on it. Oh. Ooh. Oh, Kraken, you were the one who was practicing when it was raining. Yeah, so that's great that you're still able to, you know, make some incremental progress on your game even when you can't get outside and play or hit balls or, you know, practice short game. You'll find if you're dedicated enough that you can pretty much always find a way to practice, right? You know, if you're waiting at a bus stop, you can stretch and, you know, work on your mobility or that sort of thing. You know, waiting for a flight in the airport. Albert Cox said hi. Hey, Albert. Thanks for checking out the stream. Appreciate you being here. So like I said, really just trying to feel that shorter backswing, right? Because for me, it gets too long and it cross the line, right? And then I'm having to really hang back on it or throw it. Last night, remember? If you can't hit balls, you know, but you have access to like a mirror or a phone camera like this, you know, you just set it up and you start working on the feel. And for me, it feels really short, right? You know, I'm trying to feel like this backswing is getting shorter, you know, which is, again, just making me realize, like, when I'm not paying attention to it, it just gets really long, right? So trying to identify those tendencies and, you know, again, just develop some feels, which for me feels like I kind of, you know, put some energy into it, send it up, but then it just kind of floats up to the top. And I find that really helps me from overswinging it. So just trying to go back to some of those feels. But what are you guys working on? M's Jules said hi. Hey, M's Jules. Welcome to the stream. Thank you guys for being here. We're racing towards 1,300 subscribers, which is really cool. So I've just got a wedge here, you know, hitting some slow speed, you know, just trying to get the body going. Super important to warm up, right? Don't just get out on the range or, you know, before your round, don't just grab the driver and start wailing away on it. You know, give your body a chance to start getting up to speed. All right, I'm gonna grab an 8-iron and start doing some impact drills while the questions start to come in and see what people want to chat about. We've been doing a lot of driver talk the last few streams. You know, trying to help with the slice, understanding why the ball slices. This is one of my favorite drills, guys. You guys have seen me do this a bunch on the channel. Presetting our impact position, right? And then, you know, go ahead and make like a 50, 60, 70% swing. And just feel how different, you know, once you've primed your body to get into that nice solid hitting position, how different it feels. One of my favorite drills right there. gonna have to wait to start doing some more putting on the live streams because I feel like that's started to fall off a little. Got to be putting some more reps in there. Who else is in our chat? Anthony asks, how much space do you need behind the net return? Does it go right up against the wall? Yeah, great question. So this one has, yeah, the base is basically right up against this wall back here. And it's maybe, 3.5 feet deep, I would guess. So this is, as close to that wall as I could get it. And I've not once had an issue with it, hitting the wall and ricocheting anywhere. I have been really pleased with the quality of the net return. It's definitely not the budget-friendly option. But I said, on here before, it does feel like a product that I could have for a decade, and just continually break it down, pack it up, move it around. And it feels like it would hold up. And I do think for me, I'm somebody who just, all times a day, if I have 30 minutes, I'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to go hit balls. Because I love the process of it. So to have access to that pretty much anytime I want has been super awesome. I've got this nice platform built now with some cushioning under our mat here, so get a little more forgiving on our rapidly aging joints. Oh, that wasn't hit particularly well, was it? A little skinny, that one. All right, hey guys. Isaac says hi. Hey, Isaac. Reed says hit a flop and then asks, does it work with driver? It does work with driver. I've not done a ton of high-speed driver swings in here as of yet, but we could probably move some things around and make it a little bit more, feel slightly less claustrophobic. That is quite a high tee, isn't it? Is this one shorter? There's no way. Wow. Well, let's try it. And then Reed asked about hitting a flop. We can try hitting a flop. So, not really going to go anywhere. Maybe if you got Kyle Berkshire in here and he's going to hit it 210 miles an hour into that net, you could have a problem. But outside of that, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So, yeah, maybe we can find a way to... I'm going to have to probably just cut this tee down, I imagine. Let's hit a flop shot for Reed, because he asked so nicely. So, when you're hitting a flop shot, most important things, open your club face, right? Lay it down and twist it to the right. Open up your stance. Right, you want to hit it that way, but you want your feet going this way. You pick the club up to the outside, right, away from your body, far away. I can't really reach it back there, right? I'm not getting it in here where I can, really get close to it, right? A lot of width. Take it outside and cut across it. Right, and you want that ball just kind of popping straight up in the air. I've been using my 60 degree. That's the club that I use for 90+% of the shots around the green. I like hitting, you know, a variety of shots with one club. You know, opening the face, closing the face, that sort of thing. But whatever your preference is, you know, usually because with the flop shot you want to get some loft, some height to it, you'd use your most lofted wedge. But again, you know, preference being what it is. Choom says, I'm sure Bryson smashes driver into that all the time. Reed says, yes, true, this is Bryson's net. Oh, that's cool. Caleb said hi. Hey, Caleb. You know, now that you say that, I feel like I definitely have seen Bryson in videos hitting into a net like this one. You're telling me I could have used code Bryson10 to save 10% and I didn't? What a shame. So body's starting to feel a little warmer now, right? You know, not having to get quite as many cobwebs out of the joints, as they say. All right, let's go back to a slightly longer club. Yeah, we got this 8-iron. That would be great. Start doing some more of those impact drills. JG or LG JG says, any tips for drills to get into the slot with elbow? Great question. So I think JG, you're talking about in the downswing, right? This movement of our right or trail elbow, right? As it comes into, you know, we start the downswing, right? We want this elbow kind of in front of our body, right? Almost jamming into our rib cage here, right? Because that's going to allow us to really keep that handle, this angle in our wrist, right? You know, you hear the term lag or, you know, creating compression, right? That's a lot of this holding this angle into impact, right? And then the release comes after, right? So that's the, you know, that's how we're trying, or what we're trying to accomplish, right? A great drill for this JG, the one that I like to do. I'm just going to borrow it straight from Rory. Pretty good career Grand Slam winner, if you want to use a drill of his, where you take a split grip, right? So, you know, separate your hands on the club, and you know, as you make it to the top of your backswing, and you know, exaggerate this feeling, right, of really keeping the club and your arms in front of your body, right? And you can, you know, take it all the way into impact and feel. You're gonna notice, you know, you gotta get some more right side bend, right? You know, this right side of our body contracts to get, you know, down into the ball, right, while rotating. So again, you can really start to feel that with the split grip, and give that one a try. That one can be really helpful. Hi, my name is Bryson. Hey, Bryson. So JG, let me know in the comments if you think that one addresses your question. Do really like that drill. It's just such a great feel to really keep everything right on top. Yes, it does. Thank you. You're going to give it a go tomorrow. Great. Hey, Nate Halstead's back in the chat. Hey, Nate. Welcome back. Lakshin Sharma said hi. Hey, Lakshin. Sorry if I'm horribly mispronouncing anyone's name. It is certainly not intentional. How's it going in your game, Nate? Coach said no drinking on the job. Well, I have great news for you. No alcohol in this alcohol-free beer. Still more than 4 years on the wagon now, so we're going to keep that going. But after a long day, you want to come out and hit some golf balls? Alcohol-free beer can be a good option. This other drill I've been doing a lot, guys, that I really like to really feel like I'm using my body and lower body to rotate is just, pushing my toes up against the top of my shoe, right? Such that it really forces me to kind of balance and not get going this way, right? This is the early extension move, right? So if you get your feet, a little more balanced and you push the toes up against the top of the shoe, really forces you to shift your weight, use your body, use your chest to close the club face. All good things when we're hitting irons. So that's a good drill you can try. Johnny says, I'm a lefty with a slice of a drive. How do I close the face? Nate, upper back killing me. Oh, I've had a bad back for a long time, so I feel you, Nate. Sam says, like the tats. Thanks, Sam. Garrett says hi. Hey, Garrett. Chitty, what's your favorite club for you right now? Probably driver. I just love hitting driver. Got to find a way to hit it a little more in here. But, all right, so Johnny's question, I'm a lefty with a slice. How do I close the face? Well, good news. What I'm going to suggest will be great advice, even if you're a righty, so lefty or righty. And number one, we want to understand what's happening when we're slicing the ball. Right, so I'm going to demonstrate, right hand, but it will be the same for you. And we have the face open at impact, right, and some amount of path that is across the ball, right? So if our target line is like this, our path is going across it, for me, to the left. If you're a lefty, right, be to the right. Right, so that's what's causing the slice. So what do we need to do, next step, to correct it? We need to close the face and neutralize the path, right? So the path needs to come more from the inside, and the club face needs to be more closed relative to the target, right? So what I'm going to suggest, last step, how do we accomplish this? If you're a lefty, right, and you're standing there and you're saying, well, I'm trying to hit the ball straight, right, but it's just, I'm continually hitting like these foul balls down the left field line, right, if I was going to use a baseball analogy. What I want you to do is, again, make the same setup like you're trying to hit it to center field, but then I want you to try and hit like a big draw out, down the right field line. Like, just force yourself, tell your brain, say, hey, I got to hit the ball over there, right? The whole left side of everything left of my target line is like the lava, right? We cannot let the ball go over there. And just feel what will happen, right, as you start to force yourself to get the club face closing, and the path will neutralize, right? And it's okay if you hit some really big hooks, right? Some huge draws. But what I want you to start working on is developing the skill of club face control, right? Because, there's great drills. I could tell you a couple drills and you stop slicing it, but if you don't develop the skills to understand, like, okay, this is what I have to do to, close the face or to open it, to hold it off, right? I think that's really where a lot of instruction falls down in saying like, well, here are just the drills and just do the drills and don't ever think about it again, right? But if you don't actually understand what's happening and how to change it in your own swing and in feels or ways that make sense to you, I think you're probably being done a disservice. So hopefully that helps, Johnny, with the slice question. Hanafi Cartoot said hi. Hey, Hanafi. Archer said, sir, respectfully, oil up. Okay. Con the Goat said hi. Hey, Con. Kraken, do you know how to hit wedges? Sometimes. Sometimes I do. What's your wedge question specifically, Kraken? Jaguar said hi. Hey, Jaguar. Oh, Johnny said thank you. You're very welcome, Johnny. Keegan said hi. It's me, Keegan. Hey, Keegan. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome into the all our new watchers as well. If you guys are enjoying this and found something valuable or a tip that could work for you, I'd love to have you follow along. Hit the subscribe button. I'll share with you guys. I mean, these live streams are by far, my most successful, YouTube product, right? I think it's just the format is really, works well for this sort of thing. The ability to like ask follow-up questions or it's like, hey, can you explain what you meant? Right? You can't really do that with a short or even a longer form video. So there is something pretty cool about the live stream format that, is helping us grow the platform. Certainly the audience seems to like it. So, really appreciate all the support, so we're going to keep doing this stuff. Let me catch up here. Oh, Kraken wants to know how to hit them further. Well, number one thing I would tell you is that wedges, as our shortest clubs, right, we use them closest to the green, regardless of how far you hit them. They're meant more for accuracy than they are for distance, right? So unless you are really, not delivering the club into the ball, on a descending angle or, really with, striking the ball properly, I wouldn't worry so much about immediately, trying to hit your wedges further. Because again, we're trying to, have them hit fly a consistent distance and in a pretty, narrow dispersion, right? We don't want them, really drawing or fading a lot. We're trying to hit them, at a pretty precise target. But that said, right, if you want to hit the ball further in general, let's understand how we could do that. Number one, kind of obvious, but increase your club head speed, right? Swing the club head faster. Other than that, right, you can improve your launch conditions. So with a wedge, that would mean, some amount of de-lofting the club more, right? That will cause it to, come out lower and with less effective loft at impact, right? So it should fly further. So that would mean, more handle forward at impact. So you can set up to that either by moving the ball back in your stance some or pushing the handle forward at address, right? To really make sure that when you hit it with your wedge, you're keeping that handle forward, right? But again, I would reiterate my point about wedges are for accuracy, not for distance. James says, teach us how to do a club twirl. All right, James, so we're going to do this. We'll do it live, right? So club twirl, you're going to take your hand, loosen your top hand grip, right? And then how do we actually twirl it? We twirl it with our thumb and these two fingers, right? So this is our twirl. And you can just practice that with one hand, for a bit, right? And then with two hands. And you're just spinning it with these, spinning it away from you, right, clockwise. And then letting it fall through your top hand, right? And then you catch it at the bottom. And you can, with some practice, you can really get some nice, high RPM club twirls going, right? And you just really give it a little flourish. So hopefully that helps, James. Anthony said hi. Hey, Anthony. Garrett says, can you help me keep slicing my long irons to the left? So if you're slicing it to the left, I assume that means you're a left-handed player, right, Garrett? Just making sure, because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. Whoa. But if you are slicing your long irons, right? I'll grab a 4-iron. Be good to demonstrate with. And you're really slicing it, right? My guess is that your swing is maybe a little bit steep, but you can get away with it with your shorter irons, right? Maybe up to like the 6-iron, and then 6, 5, 4. Those are going to get pretty tough, right? If you're a little bit steep and the face is slightly open, right? And you're kind of still cutting it across it slightly, right? Maybe you're saving it with some tilt, or flipping it at the bottom. But that's my guess, right? Based on what you're saying, is mostly pertains to the long irons. So what I want you to do, grab something like a head cover, right? And you're going to put it just outside and to the right of the ball, right? And we're going to use this as a barrier, as a blocker, such that if you do get a little steep, right, you'll hit that barricade. And what you're trying to feel, especially with these long irons, right, is that you're making, kind of a nice balanced, smooth swing. And you're hitting it from the inside, right? Notice how I didn't hit that head cover at all. Feeling just a tiny bit of the face turning over through impact. So that can be a nice drill to set up to try and train yourself, in your setup with these longer clubs. And you don't have to do it at full speed, right? You can make some slow swings and just say, what would I have to feel to deliver that club more from the inside, right? Such that I'm not going to hit that barricade. So hopefully that helps. Keegan said, good job, dude. Thanks, Keegan. How do you get more compression in irons? So compression is going to be about, again, just a lot of descending angle into the ball and, forward shaft lean, right? Some amount of de-lofting of the club. That's how we get good compression. Nate says, Coach, what do you recommend when the lie is too wet and sucking up wedges? Do you mean like chipping around the green, Nate? Or sucking up wedges like the green is, spinning back a lot. Is that what you mean? Keegan showing some support. I love it. Thanks, Keegan. Same with James. Carlos, can you focus on fixing an over-the-top downswing, showing the correct downswing path? Absolutely, yeah. So, I want Nate to... 20 yards to 50 yards. So let me answer Nate's question really quick, and then I'll come back to Carlos. So Nate, this is a great question. And one thing that I found playing in, especially, in the spring and fall, kind of those shoulder seasons, when it is really wet, right, and you're trying to pitch around the greens, what you really need to avoid is, number one, hitting it heavy, right? So we got to make sure that our low point is in front of the ball. And what I find also really helps, right, is using a slightly longer club. So like I just mentioned, I chip almost all my shots around the green in this range with a 60 degree. But if I had, like some damp rough, right, or maybe a first cut, right, and it's really wet and soggy, and that if you don't catch it perfectly clean, it's going to be, it's going to go half as far as you want, right? I might grab like a 52 degree, right, that for me has, less bounce. But when I open the face, it's going to expose a lot more bounce, right? So I can play this, you know, the same way I might with a 60, but with a longer club and using, you know, more of the bounce, it gives me a little bit more margin for error in my pitching. You know, if I do come into it a little bit steep or you know, hang back on it, that can I found that can help. And then also just, you know, being committed to it, right? You know, make an assertive, you know, an assertive strike on it, and try to take that, you know, the dreaded like decel, you know, hit it 10 yards in front of you shot. That's the one we're really trying to avoid. Yep, exactly, Nate. You got it. So Carlos was asking about the over-the-top swing, right? And this, again, I'm going to leave the same drill station we were just doing for the question about the long irons, right? Because it's going to be the same exact idea. And Carlos is saying, you know, I'm over the top. I want to, you know, fix that and my steep downswing, right? So when we say steep or over the top, right, the club head is getting too close to us on the backswing. And to get back to the ball, we have to come over, right, or steepen that plane in a loop like this, right, to get back to the ball. And what that means is we're you know, having kind of a glancing strike. The ball's going to spin a lot. It's going to move to the, you know, a lot to the right. This is a pretty common, you know, fault, right? And what we need to do, Carlos, is get the club coming more from the inside, right, shallower, to really allow us to hit the ball properly, right? So if you asked me to go really slow on the backswing and the downswing, right? So the key is keeping that club head outside of your hand slightly on the way back, right? And if you think about them as parallel arcs, right, train tracks almost, the club head and your hands, well, the club head has to travel in a longer arc, right? So we need to keep it as far away from our hands to generate speed and power as we can, right? So I'm always trying to feel like that club head is far away from me in the backswing, right? So I keep it out there on the way back. As I move, you know, I shift my weight to my left side, the club will naturally start to fall, right? My hands stay inside, the club head goes out towards the ball, right? But from the inside, shallower, right? And that allows me to get through the hit. So again, you set up a drill station like this, use the head cover, you know, outside of the ball, right? So that if you do make the over-the-top swing, you're going to hit it before you even get to the ball, right? And you can use that for feedback. But if you do make the swing that you're looking for, right, you're not going to hit the head cover. You'll have a nice shallow approach into the ball. You know, should see the ball start to straighten out or hopefully draw a little bit. Yeah, you're welcome, Carlos. I hope that helps. Spencer asked, do you ever feel like it seems that you hit half your clubs well and the other half poorly, and it's random each round? For me, I feel more like certain aspects of my game will be on or off, right? I'll be like, you know, I haven't driven it well today, but my irons are okay, or, you know, I didn't make any putts, but, you know, my wedges were pretty good. Yeah, I think that's just golf, to be honest. Like, understanding that you're never going to have 3 out of 3 or 4 out of 4 aspects of your game at their best day to day is pretty important, because, you know, once you accept that and you say like, okay, you know, I can still score if my driver's not good, or I can still score if my irons aren't great today, because there will be days where that's true. And we want to try to make sure, you know, we want to play our best. And, you know, so mentally understanding that, like, you know, some days I'm going to have to play to the center of the green more than I would otherwise, because I'm just not quite sure, you know, which wedge swing is going to come out. And you'll hit a lot of shots at 30 feet and 2-putt and say, hey, you know, it's one of those days. And I'm using other parts of my game to keep the whole thing moving forward. Right? Instead of saying like, well, I'm just going to keep aiming at pins and making bogeys because I, you know, didn't want to accept the fact that, you know, maybe I need to just work on that part of my game after the round, and the round is for, you know, getting the ball in the hole. So that's my TED Talk about, you know, different parts of the game being on or off. The good shots keep me going, though. Yeah, that's exactly it, Spencer. Right? And I think, you know, as you spend, you know, time trying to improve certain aspects of your game, you'll see that improvement, you know, over a long enough period of time, even if it isn't immediately evident, right? You know, a specific round of golf has, you know, a lot of variables, you know, a lot of things that can impact how you play, you know, your scoring, where the pins are. But just because you don't immediately see it in the outcomes, doesn't mean that the time wasn't well spent. Right? Focus on those good shots. Say, like, what was going through my mind when I hit those good shots? Right? Were the feels different? Was I less anxious for some reason? See, I've been working a lot to not get steep, but this is a great drill even for me. I mean, these are just flush 4-irons. So yeah, those days where everything is on, you know, short game's dialed. If you do miss a green, but you know, you're mostly just kind of point and shoot off the tee, and then you're hitting all your irons where you're looking. I mean, those days are few and far between, right? Most of the time, it's, you know, some amount of grinding and trying to, you know, play to your misses. All right, Tom says having trouble with weight shift with irons. So for weight shift, what I would start doing is, even without a club, right, you don't even have to hit balls, just make your backswing and then practice this move here, right? Just this, you know, you can give yourself a little heel lift to feel it, right? Make your backswing and then just practice this weight shift to start your downswing, right? You know, feeling like your left heel is landing slightly closer to the target, right? Because to do that, you have to shift your weight. You wouldn't just move your foot like that, right, while keeping your weight back. So that can be a good one to really start to feel that weight shift. Triker, how do you hit straight if you're righty? So same idea. You could set up a drill station like this, or I like to do it with some alignment rods. Right? And you would set them up like train tracks and put your ball in the middle. And this is a great way you can train, you know, both the path and the face, right? To, you know, make sure that you're hitting it, you know, somewhat straight, right? Because if I get really from the inside, like I might hook it or block it, I'll hit this inside one. And if I'm steep or, you know, over the top, right, slicing it, I'm going to hit this outside stick. So in order to make a, you know, a pretty neutral, clean strike on the ball, I have to avoid hitting those sticks. So that can be a really good drill to work on, you know, having the ball come out straight. Demon says, keep cooking, coach. Thanks, Demon. Oh, let me come back to Owen's question. Can you show how to properly grip your irons? So first thing I would say is grip's going to be pretty similar, you know, through the bag, at least for me. And some key you know, focus areas of focus, right? You want to make sure that the club's running through our fingers, right? If you guys can see this, hopefully. We don't want it in the palm, in here, right? We want it right, you know, in the fingers. And remember, guys, when you're taking your grip, right, remember what we're doing here. We're swinging a stick at high speed into the ground, right? So take the club in just your lead hand, right, your left hand if you're a right-handed player, and if you're a lefty, it'd be your right hand, right, but your lead hand, and just ask yourself, like, hey, I have to swing this into the ground really fast. How would I hold it, right? If you're holding it like kind of underneath, like this, right, with your fingers on top, well, that's going to feel terrible. You can't really generate much speed, right? You'd be kind of just throwing your wrist at it, right? But notice, as you start to get your hand more on top of the club, right, you could really boom, you know, deliver some force with this, you know, this wrist angle. So understanding how our body works in relation to the task we're trying to accomplish can be a great starting point, right? Don't forget, we're swinging a stick into the ground. That's what golf is. So let's act accordingly, right? So you need a good, you know, strong wrist angle when you're making your grip. And I like to remind people, grip the club the way you would at impact, right? So with an iron, you want the club, you know, the handle slightly in front, right? Some forward shaft lean. Grip the club in that position, right? Don't grip it like this and then try to, you know, your face is going to be open, right? If you have a neutral grip with a neutral shaft, well, if you then push the shaft forward, right, the face is open, my grip is weak. So, you know, set the club the way you want to hit the ball and then grip it, is my take. How much is the practice setup? Looks like a pretty solid setup to get some shots in at home. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, Spencer. It's probably about $1,000 all in, right? You know, a couple hundred, maybe 250 to build this platform with some 2x4s and a hitting mat with some, you know, some cushioning underneath it. And then the net return was certainly the most expensive part. That's like $695. So not cheap at all, but it, like I said earlier, it definitely feels like a built-to-last product. Nate says, I notice you teach and highlight some of the Ben Hogan aspects to the swing. What are some differences versus Hogan? What are some similarities? Well, I'll take that as a huge compliment, so thank you very much, Nate. I mean, the things that if I were to try to draw comparisons, right, to the things that, you know, my understanding of what Hogan taught, you know, with especially the glass pane idea, right? So if you're not familiar, you know, in one of Hogan's books, there's a drawing, right, where he envisions, you know, like a pane of glass running from the golf ball up kind of through his shoulders, right, when he's at his address position. And he's trying to articulate, like, you know, that is kind of the plane of the swing, and you can't move forward or back away from the ball without breaking the plane of glass, right? And I do think there's a lot to that in trying to help people understand, like, I like the way that TPI talks about it, saying, like, there's a box here, right? And the only thing that is allowed in the box is your hands and your arms in the club, right? Your body's not allowed in the box, your knees, your feet, not allowed to go that way. So same sort of idea. And what I like to do to feel that, right, is what I was just saying earlier about, you know, pushing the toes up into the top of your shoe to really feel like we're rotating, right? The backswing is, you know, centered, but, you know, rotation. And then, again, you know, pivot, weight shift, rotation, right? And we're kind of on a single plane all the way through, right? It's just an arc around our body. So does that help, Nate? You know, add some context maybe to explaining some of this stuff. But I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. Obviously, certainly the guy was an incredible ball striker. Hey, Maxton, what's up, Maxton? Appreciate you checking out the stream. Is it just turf on plywood with a 2x4 base plus the padding? What did you use for the padding? Yeah, so I got I got some of those like 3/4 inch gym foam tiles, right? The ones you would use for like a home gym floor. With just some, you know, cardboard underneath, you know, to make some layers. And yeah, it's just a, you know, 2x4s with plywood on the bottom, screwed it up. The idea was really just to, you know, get it up off the ground, right? When I was hitting just with the mat, and this is just a pretty cheap, like, Dick's Sporting Goods Max Fly mat. You know, if you go online, you can go really down a rabbit hole of, like, how to get the best, you know, at-home hitting area. For me, I just needed something that was, you know, quick and reliable. And this gets it up off the ground, right, such that the, you know, the impact of the strike, especially with, you know, like a 7-iron that you're swinging pretty fast, you know, at a, you know, -5 angle of attack into the ground, you know, starts to wear on your hands and your joints after a while. So I found this has really helped to cushion some of that, and again, just to get it up off the ground. So I'll probably put some feet in it, some of those self-leveling screw-in feet to further do some of that and allow me to really balance it. Or maybe, I could even practice like uphill or downhill stances. So yeah, that's the skinny on the platform. Nate says, do you hit a cut like Hogan or keep your swing more dynamic? The real answer, Nate, is we find out on the practice tee before the round starts how we're hitting it. With the longer clubs, I definitely prefer hitting a cut. I try to hit a cut mostly through the bag. With the shorter clubs, it can definitely start turning if I'm not really aware of, holding the club face off. But the real answer is I'm trying to hit, I pick a target and I'm trying to hit the ball pretty straight. And then I'm just adjusting to like, okay, the draw swing really feels better today, or, as I'm warming up on the range, like every ball is coming out with a draw. I might, kind of adapt to it more that way, but, I think I have played my best golf historically playing a fade. So that is usually what I'm trying to feel, especially with the driver, right? I hate seeing the ball going quick left with the driver. It just feels so helpless and awful. No matter how bad my swing feels, I can, tee it down and aim down the left, and I can produce a cut like 98% of the time. It might be like a terrible, heely, spinny slice, right? But I can at least produce that shot, pretty much 100% of the time. Yeah, Spencer's interested in building something similar. Very cool. Yeah, I'm glad maybe this could inspire for you. Nate says, Coach, how do we donate to you for your solid advice and time and effort here? Well, you certainly do not need to donate to me. There are much better causes or organizations that could use your support more than I can. But I do have coaching available for online lessons. If you're like, hey, this coaching style really resonates with me, that link is in the description here, I think, or it's also in our YouTube bio. So if that's something you're interested in, you're saying like, hey, I'm pretty serious about my golf. I want to, take the time to, do one-on-one lessons, and maybe John Young is somebody who, could help me. That option is out there. So that's something I'm, not pushing too hard, but I want people to know it is out there. Not to suggest that we're going to stop doing any of this stuff or doing the free live streams, right? It's really just a bonus option, because some people have inquired about that, right? Like, hey, if I really wanted you to coach me, could we do that? And the answer is yes now. That's my only issue, is snap hooking the driver. Worst feeling ever. I can't seem to get it under control. Good question, Zach. So yeah, it's super frustrating, right? The best thing I would tell you is start when you're on the practice tee, right? You're at the range, and you're working on driver. Like, just hit a bunch of cuts. Learn how to hit like a low screaming fade, right? Where you're staying on top of it and you're getting the face open, right? And you're really, it's going to feel like you're stacked on top of it and you're really just hitting down on it. But if you're really struggling with the hook, you got to be able to develop some feels to control the club face and your club path, right? That can be, teeing the ball down, opening your stance, right? Opening the club face, and just start to learn how to produce that shot on a consistent basis. And you'll train yourself to have a lot better awareness of where that club face is, right? Such that you won't as regularly see, that big snap hook drive to the left. Because yeah, it feels super out of control. Spencer, glad I stumbled on the stream. Thanks for your time answering my questions. I subbed. Have a great rest of the evening. Thanks very much, Spencer. Appreciate you being here and for subbing. If you guys are like Spencer and you've been enjoying the stream and you want to show us some support, and hit that subscribe button. For a kid with a former lisp, I did a lot of speech therapy in my day, That was tough. That was, that was a lot of S's. But yeah, super grateful to all of our subscribers. Again, guys, my goal was maybe I could have 1,000 subscribers in like 12 to 18 months if I really, posted every day. So to have already accomplished that in, like our 4th or 5th month on the platform has been super cool. That's the swing feel I really like, where it just, at the top, it takes kind of a second to gather, right? I hold that angle, and then boom, right into the back of the ball. Kraken asked, do you know how much longer you will be streaming? Probably about another 20 minutes. Click said hi. Hey, Clicks. Clicks is one of our OG subscribers. Zach said, definitely subscribe. Thanks for your time. Looking into streaming myself. Very cool. My best advice, Zach, would be to just start, right? It's the hardest thing, is to be like, just to push the button for the first time and to turn it on and say like, hey, I'm going to do a live stream and, hit golf balls or hit putts, right? I started out in my office just hitting putts on a tiny little space, in the corner and chatting with people about, golf clubs and equipment and it's not easy, right? I'm not a very social person. Actually, get a lot of social anxiety. So this isn't something that like comes naturally to me, performing in front of a bunch of people. But I knew this was something that interested me. And, if you want to grow and get better at things, you have to feel uncomfortable, right? And certainly now that I've done it, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 times, it gets a lot easier, right? But the first time's really hard. So I think acknowledging that and, just give it a try, see if you like it. How often I poop correlate to my potential success at playing golf? I don't think so. I mean, I think if for health reasons, maybe, you didn't have like 5 straight hours where you didn't have access to a toilet, it could be problematic. But no, I can't imagine there's a strong correlation. Oh, that face was open. Just slightly. All right. Kraken said, yesterday felt like a short stream. Yeah, sometimes things happen. The streams get cut short. My philosophy is always like, well, if I only have an hour, an hour is better than doing nothing at all. So, yeah, I would love to be able to stream for, 2-3 hours consecutively at a time, but just day to day, it's going to depend. Until one of you guys, decide you really are going to pay all my bills and sponsor the channel. Looking at you, TaylorMade. Just kidding. It's going to be a little sporadic. But, again, like I said, all the support, all the validation, from you guys really makes it easier to say, like, hey, I think, I could do this every day almost. And have a good time doing it. Answering questions, hanging out with you guys. So would love to keep doing more of it. So appreciate you guys. New here from the UK. I've been playing golf about 6 months, so still new. Left-handed, but play right-handed. Do you think that's why I can't get power in the drive from tee off? Good question, Spirit Brothers. I don't know if I have a good answer to this question. I think whatever feels better for you. The implications aren't as severe as they used to be, right? Nowadays, there's pretty good options for left-handed equipment. So if you feel like that is more natural, right, I would stick with it. But there are slightly better club options for right-handed players. Other than that, yeah, it's really just, about which one feels best as you try to generate speed and to hit the ball. Josh Schmidt-Sass, in your downswing, how did you teach yourself to drop your elbow into the right slot? Good question. Nice C tapers. Yeah, good eye. These are the C tapers. So Josh is asking about this, the shallowing move, right, as we're coming into the ball. And to be honest with you, Josh, it's not something that I particularly focus on a whole bunch, right? It's not like I'm trying to focus more on kind of like what my lower body and my sequencing is doing, right? Understanding that as long as I do those things right, the club should be in a pretty good spot to be hit solidly. But it's still an important thing, if that is a feel that's helpful for you, right? A good one to do, we were demonstrating earlier, that I'm going to steal right from Rory McIlroy. Pretty good guy to, borrow drills from. And you guys have maybe seen him demonstrate this split grip drill, right? So split your grip, take your bottom hand, push it down to the end of the grip, right? Make your backswing, and then feel in the downswing what will happen, right? Your right elbow will stay in front of your body, and that's the feel you want to key in on, right? For me, what I feel more is my right side, this oblique, really crunching, right? My right side bending to rotate into the ball to close the club with my chest, right? And then the club continues swinging, kind of left around my body in this arc, right? This is the arc of the swing. So that can be a really good drill if you're trying to feel that right elbow get more in front of you, right? Kraken, not saying it was a bad thing. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Left-handed person swinging right is a blessing. Yeah, I think I've heard that too. It feels natural to me to swing right-handed, although everything else in my life is left. Find the irons I can connect sweep, but tee off, I'm closing the face on the driver, but no power. Yeah, I think, again, if you're just learning, Spirit Brothers, don't forget, these are pretty, difficult skills that are different from each other, right? Hitting irons versus drivers is different, so give yourself a bit of grace and time to say, like, I'm just learning this game, and it's complicated and difficult, and, certain aspects of it will come faster than others, right? I've been playing golf for 20 years and still haven't figured out putting, right? You guys have seen me miss a lot of short putts on this channel already. Calvin says, this is some great information. Thanks, Calvin. I appreciate that. Elton said hi, or A10 said hi. Hey, A10. Josh, awesome answer. Thank you. I appreciate that, Josh. Zach, probably need to work on using the ground more for power. Yeah, that could be right, Spirit Brothers. It's Birch. What's the secret to the wood swing? And then Isaiah Pacheco asks, are you playing Tacomos, and if so, which flavor? I am. These are the 301 CB Tacomos. I switched from a true, MB, like blade iron, right? These are my old TaylorMade 2011 MB irons that I used to have for a long time. And I did switch to the Tacomos, which I really like. It's even a little bit shorter heel to toe, which I prefer. Looks great behind the ball, right? Not a ton of offset at all. Feels awesome. It just feels like a forged iron. Good price. Okay, what's the secret to the wood swing? Let's answer Birch's question. So I don't know about secrets, but I'll grab my new 7 wood, which I've really been enjoying this club. So I think the key to hitting fairway woods is, remember that it is different from a driver swing, right? The club's sitting on the ground. So it's okay to hit down on it some amount, right? You don't want to be super steep like an iron, but, it's okay to take a little divot even, right? To hit down on these when they're sitting on the ground. We do want a somewhat shallow angle of attack, right? But something like neg 2, neg 1, 0, totally fine for a fairway wood, right? I like to play it, slightly further back than driver. So, maybe a ball forward of where I would play an iron. And then I try to feel really balanced with these clubs, right? Pretty short arm swing. Feeling like my chest and my body, everything staying kind of right here as I make the backswing. And then from there, you just rotate through it. So those are kind of the things that I would key in on. It is such a fun club to hit, guys. It just wants to go straight. I mean, I love the 2-iron. It's so fun to hit stingers, but like, if you ever saw somebody hit like 10 balls with each club side by side, you'd never tell them, to keep the 2-iron in the bag, right? Especially like hitting into greens. I mean, just the amount of like the height and spin that I can get out of this thing. Just feels really, really good. So don't be afraid to check out a lofted wood. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful, Birch. 90% of driver power is in 10% of the club face. I love that saying, Nate. What Nate's trying to say and remind us is, doesn't really matter how fast you swing it if you're not hitting the center of the club face, right? And it is a pretty small target, but that is a very key skill to develop if you want to start, hitting the driver further. It's consistently hitting the center of that club face. Never seen those MBs from TM. Cool. Yeah, these are the 2011 forged MBs, right? And they had these weight plates, that never really caught on. But these were really cool. Played these all through college and for a long time until I got the Tacomos. I've tried, I had a set of Mizunos that I tried for a little while. I tried the PXGs, but always kept going back to those MBs. So we'll see if these ones stick. I never used to like golf, but I won a competition here. Got the new AI Smoke irons. Can't use them, but yet trouble with the driver and 3-wood. I'm putting a 5-wood back in the bag, getting rid of my 3-iron. Yeah, I think a lot of us are doing that, right? I'm thinking about even getting rid of the 4-iron. And I don't know, maybe even just having 13 clubs. Because right now I've got driver, 5-wood, 7-wood, and then, 4 through pitching wedge. Oh, it feels so good to just be hitting 4-irons like that again. And like that. That was a little bit out of the toe, but not terrible. Nice float balance on the 3-wood. Thanks, Nate. What kind of budget golf balls do you recommend these days? Good question, Calvin. I think some of the Strixon golf balls, even like their premium ball is a little bit cheaper than like TaylorMade or Titleist, can be a good place to look. Or I think like usedgolfballs.com potentially, for like secondhand ones. I think also a good way to go is if you're able to, right? I know, not all of us can, but at the beginning of the season, like Titleist and TaylorMade will run the, buy 3, get 4 dozen type deals, and that can be a good way to lower your cost overall for the season. If you know that you're going to be, going through a bunch of golf balls. What wedges do you play? Good question, Zach. I've had these are SM8s, but I've been playing the Vokey wedges for quite a while. And I'll probably get the, maybe next year or the year after when I upgrade these. Or, need some new ones if these wear out. But yeah, Vokey wedges been in my bag for quite a while. Do you ever use a launch monitor? Garmin R10 is great. If you use RCT balls, it gets decently accurate. It would be cool to see your numbers while you hit. Yeah, great question, Isaiah. So I'm going to be moving somewhat soon and hoping to set up like some sort of simulator. I do have a Gen 1 Rapsodo MLM, which I don't think will work particularly well with the net, but I'm thinking about investing in the new MLM 2 Pro that I've seen a lot of good. It's integrated with GS Pro now. It seems to be about 99% accurate compared to even like TrackMan or GC Quad. So that might be the plan. But the Garmin R10 is interesting. I've just always preferred sort of the more mobile ones. Strixon and Vice Tour Pro Balls if you want to save more. Yeah, good call on the Vice. I've heard good things about those, or even like the Kirkland Signatures if you can find them. Spirit Brothers, nice to meet you. We'll drop a sub. Found the channel popping up for a vape. Awesome. Thanks, Spirit Brothers. Appreciate you checking out the channel and subscribing. That's amazing. Behind you, I'm a freshman in high school consistently shooting 95. Is that good? Yeah, I think if you're happy with your results, and you're having a good time out there on the golf course, that's what's most important. Again, if you're having a good time and you're pleased with the scores, the best thing I would tell you is if you want to play better, invest more in your game. That can be, start with practice. Learn some golf strategy. Embrace your driver, right? Learn how to hit driver and play. But yeah, certainly, if you're already breaking 100, you're way ahead of most people. So keep at it. Keep working hard. Nate asked, do you run 3 wedges? What degrees? Well, I would say 4, right? My Tacoma pitching wedge is 47 degrees. And then I have 52, 56, and 60 in my Vokey wedges. Hopefully you guys can see those. I've always liked the darker, oil can or black finishes on the wedges, right? Because they're not as shiny. I really don't like the, getting distracted looking down and seeing like a big glare off the sun on a sunny day. So I've always preferred the dark finish. Even like the old gray, like the SM6s, I used to, you could, if you soaked them in CLR, you could take the finish off. Sean asks, best way to fix coming over the top, especially with driver creating a gnarly slice. All right, Thomas, I think we're going to have to remove Thomas. Sorry, buddy. It's just too much. Okay, Sean, best way to fix coming over the top. So we were doing this drill earlier, but let's walk through it. For over the top, right, grab a head cover or, some sort of barrier, but something that, you might hit with a golf club. So I recommend a head cover. And let's understand, if you're coming over the top and you're slicing, right, we can even demo this with a driver. Right? That means the club's kind of getting sucked inside, and then you're rerouting it back over the top, right, and you're attacking it kind of from the top, right, on a steeper angle. Driver's, slicing, right? If you put this barricade, this head cover here, out to the right, you're going to force yourself to say, okay, I have to do something different. I have to hit it from the inside. Otherwise, if I get steep, I'm going to hit that head cover, right? It's going to, you're obviously not going to hit the ball very well. It's not going to go anywhere. So give yourself some feedback, right? So if you make the swing you want and you hit it from the inside, you'll miss that head cover. Does that make sense? So that's where I would start, as far as a drill for coming over the top, right? Give yourself some feedback. Bobby asked, do you use a rangefinder? I do have one in my bag. I'm trying to use it less, I will share. Trying to do more, GPS, and what I am trying to accomplish with that is picking bigger targets, especially on approach shots, right? Where our goal is not to hit it, super close to the flag all the time, especially outside of 150 yards. Like, your goal is just to hit it on the green. And I, strategically need reminding of that, right? And I find with, if I have the laser and I shoot, 189 yards, then I'm standing there being like, well, I could like flight a 5, or I could just, hit a hard 6 and turn it, or, something like that, as opposed to like, dude, just hit the ball on the green. Who cares where the flag is from 190 yards, right? So I'm trying to actually use my rangefinder less. Calvin, can you show us how to twirl the club? You seem to be great at it. Never learned how to. Yeah, sure. I did it earlier, but let's do it again. So the way I do it, and I just learned this myself, You're welcome, Sean. I'm glad you think that's going to be helpful. If you guys are like Sean, enjoying the stream, you want to subscribe and like the channel, that's super appreciated. So Calvin, I appreciate you being here for so long. Calvin's been hanging for a while. Let's do the club twirl, right? So I twirl with my right hand with these middle fingers, right? My ring finger, my middle finger, and the thumb, right? Spinning it like this. So we make the swing, right? Boom. Left hand loosens a little bit. We spin the club and let it fall through our hand, and then we catch it at the bottom, right? So just practice like this. Boom. Just twirl. Right hand comes off, and then you just build in letting it fall. Hey, Calvin, sub 2. Thanks, Calvin. Larry said hi. Hey, Larry. Hey, Blobby. Blobby said hi. Bobby Jackson, love the channel, by the way. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, Isaiah's exactly right. Kim asks, no, I do not. I did for a long time interlock my fingers like this. Oh, it feels really weird now. But now I use the overlap grip, sometimes called the Varden grip, if you ever heard that, where this right pinky just sits kind of on top of my, the gap in my index and middle finger on the left hand. And for me, I found that that was helpful in taking some of the flippiness, right? With the interlock grip, I was really able to throw the club at the ball and kind of get flippy like this. Whereas with the overlap grip, it's not quite as, stable, to be honest, which for me was a good thing, right? To really feel like my left, side is driving the swing, and I'm closing it, with my chest and my body to get some more rotation, right? To not, if I can't flip it, right, really throw it at the bottom, it forces me to turn and stay in my posture. So that was the objective, and that's how I accomplished it. I see twirling with the right hand, always thought it was left. Thanks, brother. Yeah, you're welcome, Calvin. Yeah, I agree. I always was trying to do it with my left hand, and I was like, oh, this kind of feels weird. And then once it clicked, it's so easy. You just, you'll see me just doing it like habitually now. So, yeah, I've enjoyed that. Hole in One Josh said, sup, bud? Hey, Hole in One Josh, what's up? Kim just began golfing. Very cool, Kim. I'm new to golf. Keep slicing it. Can you tell me why I keep doing that? Great question, Bobby. So I'm glad you started there, because I was going to, lots of folks come in and they're like, I just need a drill, right, to stop slicing it. But I'm glad you said, well, why is this happening? Because I think it's super important to understand why this happens in the first place. So if you've ever played, ping pong or table tennis or even, regular tennis with a racket, right? And you can imagine if I wanted to hit a drop shot, right? A really spinny, a ball that went just over the net and didn't really go very far. I would open up the racket or the paddle, right? And I would kind of hit down and across it, right? And the ball would come out with not a lot of with not a lot of speed. It would come out kind of, curling to the right, left to right, with a lot of backspin. And when we slice with the driver, it's the same exact thing, right? And a lot of beginners do this because the club head gets inside, and they're swinging, on a steep angle into the ball, and you get this kind of glancing effect, right, where the club face is open relative to the target, and the path is too much to the left. So you have a swing that kind of looks inside like this and then loops back to the outside, right? That's going to produce that big slice. So, Blobby, hopefully that helps understand why it's happening, right? And now let's talk about what can we do to fix it, right? So you have to exaggerate the opposite. So if we know that the slice is because the club head's coming inside and then over this way, try to feel like you can produce the opposite, right? Where the club head stayed outside this way and then looped underneath, right? Such that you could hit the ball from the inside, right? And so you're going to fight fire with fire. Try to give yourself the exact opposite. Exaggerate that feeling, right? Where it's, the club is being pulled away from you and then it drops to the inside, right? Where you're making the opposite sort of loop, right? Then, like I was just demonstrating for another commenter, set up a head cover, something like this, around the outside of your ball. And when you're practicing on the driving range, setting that up like that will force you to adjust to miss the head cover, right? Because if you make the same steep slice swing, you're going to hit that head cover. So in order to miss the head cover and get back to the ball, you have to approach from the inside, you know, or a more neutral type path, right? Hopefully that makes sense, you know, understanding sort of why it's happening and then what we're going to do about it. Sean says, going to practice driver and all clubs at the range using that trick this weekend. I grip the club with the overlap as well. Awesome. Calvin said, great explanation. I use overlapping, then interlocking for my wedges for some reason. Interesting. Subscribe for more tips and tricks. Thanks, Sean. Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome, Bobby. Justin, can you show us some chipping tricks? Yes, we can do a little bit of chipping, and then that is probably going to be the last question that we have time for tonight, guys. But my best piece of advice, especially if you're a beginner, right? The most important thing to understand when we're chipping around the green is we need to be playing our next shot from the green, right? It can be a 30-foot putt, it can be a 40-foot putt. You know, ideally it's inside of 10 feet, and once in a while you hit it up, you know, stone dead, and you just tap it in for an easy par. But most importantly, especially if you're a beginner, our goal when we're chipping is to get the ball on the green. You know, we know that statistically, shooting lower scores is about avoiding double bogeys. So that means no penalty shots off the tee and no 3 putts. So, and no double chips, obviously, right? So with that in mind, Justin, I think it's super important, especially if you're just learning, to develop a single shot, right? Grab one club, a sand wedge, a lob wedge, a gap, you know, some sort of wedge that you feel comfortable with, and practice a shot the same, you know, the same setup, the same ball position, the same, you know, approach, right? It can be like a Phil Mickelson, you know, hinge and hold. You know, I prefer more of like a Jason Day, like pretty neutral, you know, rock the shoulders type chipping approach. But find a single shot that you can repeat, you know, over and over and over again in practice, such that when you get out on the golf course, even if you have trouble in front of you or, you know, a tough lie, you can say, okay, I can pull this one shot out and I can hit it somewhere on the green 9.5 out of 10 times, right? And you're just going to work on that one shot, which for me is like a slightly open stance, you know, ball position back, right? On video, it looks like it's almost behind my back foot, but, you know, somewhere like kind of just slightly back of center, right? Where I'm just kind of right on top of it. And, you know, that for me is that one shot, right? Where if you're like, you have to hit it on the green, that's where I'm going to go. But for some people, it's, you know, more open with the face or, you know, standing right on top of it, right? There's tons of different ways. I hit all my shots around the green with a 60 degree. But, you know, I'll hit some that are, you know, forward and playing up, and I'm really, you know, adding a bunch of spin. I'll also, you know, get in here, like where it's behind my back foot, and hit some like really low, you know, low spin, hooky ones out of the toe. But that all comes after. That comes later, right? You need that one shot that you can say, this is going to get on the green, it's going to get out of this bad lie, and I can at least have a putt for par, you know, or for my next shot when you're chipping around the green. That is sage advice. You play backwards from the pin. Once you know you have a putt from a certain radius, helps take stress off the chip or lag putt. Yeah, totally, Isaiah. Spent a lot of money on instruction over the years. I've been testing Coach Young in the chat. Everything he has said is legit. Well, I appreciate that vote of confidence, Nate. I have certainly spent more hours studying and practicing this crazy game than I would care to admit. But that is what's great about it. I'll probably hit a few more here, guys, and then unfortunately have to call it for the night. But man, that feel is just so good right now. Just really feeling like it's outside, and then everything can just stay right there, and it's nice and compact. You know, I don't have to worry about timing it up. I just, as long as I stay centered and boom, just nice thumpy center of the face iron contact. through the bag right now. So we're going to keep that going. Really appreciate all you guys subscribing and commenting on the videos and all the support on the channel. So one more chance, if you haven't yet subscribed and you're interested in doing that, I would really be grateful. But until next time, guys, we're gonna keep doing more streams, and we'll see you on the next one.